Afternoon. I'm James Harrison from Advocates for Human Potential. I apologize about the slight delay. IT was not my friend this afternoon, but we're here. I've been working with AHP now for going on 3 years with a subject matter expertise in workforce and dealing with the reentry population as well as other marginalized communities, helping provide advocacy and support.
Thank you, James. All right, so the learning objectives for today, we're going to identify inclusive recruitment practices that attract diverse talent. We're going to talk about strategies for retaining staff in human services and in the housing field. And we're going to learn how to develop a sustainable workforce pipeline, kind of show you some ideas that we have researched and explored and have actually used ourselves, and explore methods for creating a supportive and equitable organizational culture. James, thank you. I was going to ask you to put yourself on mute because I was getting echo back. I hate hearing my own voice. Okay, so the first question I have for you all, you can either come off mute or go into the chat. What are your biggest challenges right now in recruiting staff? I'll give you about a minute to answer. I'm going to pick on people if nobody speaks. So you all are recruiting people, you're doing well.
Well, this is there, enough from what I've seen in reviews and heard from agencies. Lots of turnover out there.
Yeah, does anybody want to put in the chat or come off mute and talk about any challenges they are having with recruitment right now? I don't see anybody on camera. All right, I'm going to call out Monique since nobody's participating.
Yeah, I would say the same thing as my counterpart, qualified candidates for positions.
Okay.
That's probably been our number one. And we're getting candidates, but just qualified ones for the position. So,
Okay. And what position are you currently having challenges with?
well, currently right now we're hiring for case management positions and office assistant positions. We've looked at job descriptions, we've updated them. So it's just a matter of finding candidates.
Yeah, that meet the qualifications.
Mhm.
All right, well, we'll kind of talk about that today of how you can maybe lower the barriers or, ideas of how you can create inclusive job postings that make people, because sometimes people think that either they don't qualify for the position or they may not make a good candidate. And sometimes we also miss people with lived expertise who may be great candidates but may not have the confidence to apply for a position. So thank you for sharing. I appreciate that.
Perfect. Thank you.
All right, so some of the challenges, and thank you for expressing that as well, Monique. What we're seeing is staff burnout and turnover, inadequate compensation, high caseloads, and administrative burdens, budget cuts. But also, that's a great one to add, candidates that are not qualified for the positions that are being posted. So thank you. So I'm just going to delve right into it. One of the things we look at strategies for attracting talent, like we talked about the job descriptions that speak to mission and equity, and using inclusive language practices and leading with impact. Why does this work matter? In ending homelessness, when I'm looking for somebody, I'm looking for somebody with heart. I'm looking for somebody with passion for the subject matter, and listing the real benefits, including flexibility, wellness programs, things like that may attract talent that normally may not apply. Building relationships with your local AmeriCorps, alumni, MSWs, like Masters in Social Works, Bachelors in Social Work programs at your universities or local community colleges, or connecting with peer support networks and those with lived experience, because representative hiring matters, especially in the work that you all do. And expanding where you're recruiting is also important. So I would encourage you, Monique or Emily, to look at where are those places that you're recruiting at. Do you always recruit at the same thing, same place all the time, the same way? I would encourage you to think creatively about the way that you're recruiting folks, partnering with local colleges, tribal communities, community-based organizations, using your peer networks, and engaging people with lived experience. And again, you guys could jump in at any time, put questions in the chat, come off mute, raise your hand. We're here to kind of, I want this session to be engaging, and we don't want to really talk at you. So we will have questions sprinkled throughout the presentation. So hopefully we can get some engagement. So people with lived experience and recruitment, I like to say people with lived expertise, because really what it is expertise. And it's important that when you're hiring people with lived expertise, you understand that it strengthens your workforce connection, the empathy, and the trust. And you want to make sure that people with lived experience feel valued and they're not tokenized within your organization or through the hiring process. And also the benefits of hiring people with lived expertise is the cultural competency piece. It adds credibility to your organization and the people that you're serving. And they also offer real world insights that, if you don't have that lived expertise that they may have, that just strengthens your programs. And you may also ask within your organization, if you have people with lived experience or you have people in these current jobs, how best do they think you should be recruiting folks? Like, just talking to folks saying, hey, we're not getting a lot of good qualified candidates. Do you have any ideas of where we should be looking, how we should be recruiting? Or are there things within our organization that we should be promoting that people know this is a great place to work? So when you're writing your job descriptions, if you're hiring somebody with lived expertise, or if that's a part of your program as a whole, talk about how lived expertise is a qualification. A lot of times people don't think about that, but that is a qualification, because there's things that people with lived expertise may have that I don't have, even with a master's or a bachelor's degree. So creating targeted outreach and onboarding processes, and provide mentorship and support success of folks. And also, one of the things too, make it easy to apply. I think a lot of times, I don't know if when I've worked for a city and I've applied, of course, for governmental positions in the past. How easy is it to apply for programs? I'm sorry, for jobs. So thinking about the process of, having yourself walk through that process. So I have to log in, I have to create a password, I have to do that. What are the steps? How can you reduce those barriers so that it's easier for people to apply? Because sometimes people don't want to jump through all the hoops. And also, one of the things to include when you are interviewing people for jobs is using value-based interviewing techniques. And these are a powerful way to focus on whether a candidate's personal values, their motivations, their attitudes, do they align with your organization's mission and values and the culture of your organization, not just the technical skills. Because I always believe you can teach people how to do something, but you can't teach passion, you can't teach empathy, you can't teach people those types of things. So in the human services sector, where empathy, resilience, and integrity are key values, a value-based interviewing identifies candidates who are likely to thrive and stay within your organization. So value-based interviewing techniques include shifting from credential-based hiring to competency and values-based interviewing. So panel interviews with diverse staff and people with lived expertise is an important part of when you're creating an interview panel. And ask about their commitment to equity, the mission of your organization, and to the community that they're serving. And also, what are the career pathways? Do you advertise those when you're trying to recruit folks, letting them know, there's opportunities to grow within our organization? Do you offer apprenticeship styles roles for entry-level folks in your organization. Internal mentorship and leadership programs allow people to feel like they can grow with an organization, that they're not leveled out at the entry level. And support certifications and continuing education. I think that's important too, is if you do have tuition reimbursement as a benefit at your organization, that you talk about that when you are having your job when your job announcements go out. And make sure pathways for advancement are available to all your staff, and including those with lived expertise. And you also want to showcase, again, what is the compensation beyond salary? What are those non-traditional benefits that your organization offers, like wellness days, professional development, student loan support, transparency around pay equity, flexible schedules, like, oh, you get your birthday off, or you can work 4 10s in a week, or do you have a flexible summer schedule? I know here at HP, we get a flexible summer schedule where we can flex either a Monday or a Friday and work 10s, depending on, what we have working on. So it's really been a great benefit to have that flexible work schedule, especially in the summertime. You have kids that are out of school, they have school activities and things like that. So just thinking broader than yourself. And also, I don't want us to forget the rural community and your considerations in recruitment when you're working with the rural community, because it is harder in rural communities because there's smaller pools of people to pull from. And again, Monique or Emily, I don't know what part of Washington you're in, so I don't know if it's the rural area. Thinking about strategies around that. Can you partner with your local high schools, vocational programs, community colleges, offering flexible remote hybrid roles, highlight community impact in your recruitment messaging, and recruiting boomerangs, people who may have left the workforce, maybe because they became new parents and they want to come back into the workforce. Talk about that in your job postings, like, hey, or when you're advertising, how do you bring people back in to the workforce, and promoting incentives like housing support or relocation stipends if needed. And some more ideas for innovative techniques for recruiting, target underrepresented and frontline staff by building the talent within, peer-to-peer professional programs, apprenticeships or fellowships, community college partnerships. I keep pushing that because that's how I got my first job out of college, was through the college, and people were recruiting and people were reaching out. And I was in social work, and my social work professor was like, hey, they're recruiting at this organization, you should go apply. So that was kind of how I was able to get my foot in the door. And return to work incentives for creating pathways for parents, veterans, or those reentering the workforce. Okay, question time again. How does your organization currently engage with people with lived experience in your hiring efforts? And what barriers have you encountered? All right, I'm gonna pick on people. All right, I'm gonna pick on Todd Jensen. Oh, he's with the HCA. That's not fair. Aaron Lloyd. Aaron, you there? All right, I don't want to talk to myself. Monique, you want to engage again?
Well, we pretty much do all of the things that you mentioned.
Right.
So yeah, so we're on the right path. Maybe
great.
just going back again and looking at our job descriptions and maybe our advertising, and we do a pretty good job about reaching out to other recruitment based platforms and what we can do. We're on the We're in Spokane, so Spokane, Idaho area.
Yeah, Spokane's amazing. All right, that's good to hear, Monique. Thank you. All right, so I'm going to go into retention tips. So retention through your workplace culture means you're prioritizing the mental health and burnout prevention. We know this work is very hard. And so if you can create an environment where people, don't burn out and you support your staff, that is obviously the best way to keep folks. So consistent feedback loops. How are your staff's voices brought into policy? How are they feel like they're heard? And do they have a voice in the decision-making process? And also thinking about trauma-informed supervision models using, regular supportive check-in focused on goals, wellness, and professional growth. I know my supervisors have asked, because part of what they ask me is about, do you have a good work-life balance? Those are things that they feel are important so they don't burn me out, right? So asking those questions to make sure that you're creating a culture where wellness is an important part of job sustainability and retention. And also train your supervisors, provide coaching on equity, cultural humility, communication, and accountability. And is there, again, leadership pipelines, creating internal promotion pathways, professional development opportunities for staff. Like you sit down and talk to them about what their goals are and what keeps them there. How do they want to grow within the organization? And what are those things that you can support them in their growth? And one of the big things, again, is wellness and burnout prevention. We talked about this a little bit, but sustaining a staff resilience and prevent turnover from emotional exhaustion. I don't know what everybody does on the call, but we know that working with these multiple populations is sometimes exhausting. Again, working with people with mental health needs, people who've experienced homelessness or housing instability can really take a toll on your emotional well-being. So offering wellness stipends if possible. We used to have sometimes somebody would come in and do chair massages for the staff. You can maybe go to your local community college where they teach mindfulness or yoga, saying, hey, would you be willing to come in once a month to our organization and maybe do some classes with my staff? They do this really hard work. It's really important work for the community. So connecting to those, or also having wellness challenges within your organization. I do what I do is 52 hike challenge. So every year I do 50 elite at the minimum 52 hikes a year, or creating challenges within your organization that gets people moving and focuses on their wellness. So also we want to make sure that we're taking care of the mental health through critical incident debriefs. So creating protocols for your staff when a challenging interaction occurs, or if somebody falls through the cracks, or sometimes the people that you serve pass away, and your staff really gets connected to those folks. And when they pass away, it really is could be detrimental to their wellness. So making sure you're taking care of your staff if something happens and debriefing with them to support them and let them know that you're there for them. And also assessing the workloads, for housing and homelessness, we always talk about 15-to-1 case ratio, because we know that any more than that is just, could be a recipe for disaster. So making sure you're routinely assessing caseloads so that folks know that, they have to take all of that on. Also, how do you assess who your higher needs clients are versus your lower needs so you're not burning folks out? This is also what's called SMART start to a wellness and burnout prevention plan. Creating specific goals, setting clear goals, quarterly wellness activities, tracking participation rates and wellness leave usage, start small wellness stipends, monthly mindful moments, relevant connecting wellness initiatives to organizational mission, and time-bound launch pilot initiatives within 6 months and review the impact annually. Also, recognition is so important because it creates community within your organization. So the goal is to build cohesive and I can't talk. Building cohesion and celebrating contributions. So recognition programs, celebrating staff monthly or quarterly awards, having peers nominate, staff nominate them each other and them, for these for recognition. I used to create these I have a box where folks can come in and drop a note about a fellow coworker, and we would read it at our biweekly meetings. Hey, James did so well during his presentation. Really appreciate having him on my team, so that he gets that, that recognition among his peers, and you're able just to show people that you appreciate their contribution to the work. Creating all staff retreats if possible, hosting annual or semi-annual retreats for team building and reflection. Also celebrate the wins. Even the little things are important, acknowledging your client's milestones and the staff's contributions in real time. And creating fun activities. Like this is something I always did when I was a chief programs officer, because I had so many staff, and it's hard to do something individually for everybody. But we would do bake-offs. We did cupcake wars, brownie bake-offs, cookie contests, and we'd have, people bring in their recipes and people would vote for them, and we'd have a, little certificate at the end. So it's just stuff that keeps people engaged. We'd have pet contests. You bring in a picture of your pet in a costume or whatever it is. It's a way to get to know each other, get to know your staff, and it creates some cohesion on your team. And also, again, I just noticed this is spelled wrong. Rule considerations in retention. Focus on relationship building. Staff often stay for the people, not just the work. So creating that environment where people feel heard, seen, and validated is important. Again, offering those hybrid remote flexibilities when it's possible, especially in the rural community, and invest in career development opportunities locally, leadership training partnerships, and recognize the broader role rural workers often play in their communities. Honor that service. We often forget that the rural community is a very close-knit community, and sometimes these folks have such a vast amount of resources and knowledge, and it's important that we recognize their contributions and develop succession planning to prevent loss of that institutional knowledge within your organization, especially for that rural population. And sometimes, especially in the housing and homelessness world, they really know those folks that are there who, because they've developed a relationship with them, they've been doing this work for a long time. So sometimes they're the best ones to talk to about individuals. So people with lived expertise and retention, building those career pathways, as we talked about, creating roles beyond entry level, creating leadership opportunities for them, and supporting retention with mentorship programs, professional development funding, if you're able to do that. Getting trauma-informed training for supervisors of peers is important. So trauma-informed supervision is tailored to the experience of the systemic barriers that people with lived experience have often been subjected to. And celebrate people with lived experience as thought leaders, not just the practitioners of a job. It's so their insight and value is so important to the work that you all are doing. And ensure those with lived experience help shape the policies and practices at every level of your organization, that they feel that they're valued as a part of that. And just to review the best practices we kind of talked about for long-term retention, investing in your employees' well-being and creating employee assistance programs and wellness initiatives, encouraging a healthy work environment, creating a sense of purpose and belonging within your organization. Recognition, again, it could be formal, it could be informal. Just how do you get that as a part of your, like we have kudos here at AHP, like we'll send each other kudos. Hey, thank you for what you helped me on. It could be formal or informal. Employee birthdays, always recognize your employees' birthdays. It's just a little thing that you could do, get a card, have everybody sign it. Whatever you can do just to recognize them, that they're valued and a part of your organization. And again, people want to feel like they're valued and that they can grow within your organization. So leadership roles, in retention, importance of their leadership and visibility and transparency, build skills that inspire loyalty and commitment. I often say I want to follow somebody who has passion and really cares about something, because it's hard to stay committed to something, especially when you're doing really hard work, if you have a leader who is not passionate about this work as you are. So building those leadership skills are so important within your organization, and leading by example, right? I often say, don't talk about it, be about it. So it's important as a leader within your organization that you are walking the walk. So leading by example through trust, respect, and empathy are such important practices. So again, question time. Uh, what's one small but meaningful way you felt recognized at work or wish you had? One.
I think one of the ways that it's always nice is just the confidence or kind of support and flexibility that a agency can provide. I think a lot of times we look at monetary supports, but I think kind of just that belief in staff and their ability to self-prioritize items, or that independence that they can be given, I think is a big way to feel recognized.
Thank you, Gary. Yes, I totally agree with that. Those are great ways that you recognize that somebody's actually contributing, they're a part of your organization. Thank you so much, Gary. All right, so I'm going to switch it over to my colleague James, and he's going to do the second part of the presentation. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Everyone, if you can hear me, if you can just please put a thumbs up or something in the chat so I know that you are still with us. I know it's been a long day, but we've got a little bit more content. Perfect. Thank you so much. I see your thumbs up. Next slide, please. So when we talk about ageism, if someone in the chat can tell me, what does ageism look like to you, or what does it mean to you when you hear that terminology, ageism? Or if you'd like to come off mute and do so as well, that would be perfectly fine. But I don't want us to get lost in the isms and the schisms of the world and not really understand what it is we're talking about. So ageism, to be treated like less because of how old you are. Perfect. That's a great bare bones definition. So some practical strategies to reduce age bias or ageism in hiring: revising job descriptions. I know we spoke about it earlier in another context, but when looking at language such as recent college graduate or recent high school graduate, the word recent, most people think within the past 2 to 3 years, no more than 5. So there could be quite a few qualified candidates who can do the job at a high level, but that word recent is discouraging them to apply, whereas they still have the knowledge, they still have the skills and the know-how. So using some type of a more inclusive language, or a language that's less restrictive, publicly made fun of for not easily adopting to new technology. And we're going to certainly get into that as we go forward. But we know that technology is one of the equal barriers for all of us, because we can be very well versed in it and have a difficult day, have a difficult connection. So it's not necessarily all about age, but certainly a lot of our older counterparts are not as comfortable with technology as some of our younger ones are. And I can say my 2-year-old can probably work my MacBook and my laptop a heck of a lot better than I can. So we're learning that as technology goes on, our comfort level might change, but making sure that we are not barring people based off of their age alone. Implement blind resume reviews, so removing things like graduation dates and early career experience. That may reveal a candidate's age, and it really helps focus on the skills and experiences. So when you are developing your online application or online portal, just putting the name and the degree obtained, and not necessarily the year. conduct implicit bias training. We all know that no matter what population that we're working with, we all have some implicit biases that can apply. So making sure we're aware of those and not relying on us all to just automatically take them out of our mind, because sometimes we don't know that they're there. Mixed age mentorship programs. Mentorship in the workplace is becoming a lot more popular, which I love. I have two mentors at HP, one of which ended up becoming my supervisor. So being able to cross the line and connect are awesome. Someone in the chat says, Janine says, algorithms are used to screen older candidates. They want college graduation dates. Exactly. And unfortunately, that is creating a barrier for a lot of our older population. And I just want to make sure I'm acknowledging what's in the chat. Technology is used as cuddle against older workers. And again, those are things that we have the opportunity and the ability to sort of try and adjust, so we are not sticking with the status quo that's barring some very qualified candidates from being able to apply for these jobs. Offer lifelong learning opportunities, providing training and development programs accessible to employees of all ages, and really showing a commitment to continuous growth, whether it's through technology classes, whether it's through different mediums or platforms, but really engaging in the education and the growth of all of our employees or potential employees. Slide. So we know that there's legal framework and compliance around it. So you have the Age Discrimination in Employment Act that is available, for more research and understanding, as well as the Equal Opportunity Commission. And utilizing some of these legal resources can sort of help with language, as well as requirements to making sure you're not only doing what's morally right and ethically right, but also within the legal confines of what should be done. Next slide. EEOC has been neutralized by the new regime. Thank you. I'll certainly take a look into that and make sure we update our slides as necessary. So there are some additional resources that offer tools that can not only assist people looking for work, but as well as things that we can utilize to make sure we are being equitable in what we are doing. Of course, AARP's Work and Job Resources Project WIN has a online free training series that addresses ageism bias. And again, it's a nonprofit organization, but their resources are completely free for you to take a look at or share with those that you work with to make sure we're staying ahead of the game and not behind it. Slide. So potential next steps: auditing our recruitment practices, reviewing current and past job postings and application processes and interview protocols to really identify and eliminate ageist language or requirements. Just taking a look at what's done with a fresh set of eyes can often reveal a lot to help us move forward. Setting realistic goals, including age diversity as a component of your organization's initiatives, and fostering an inclusive culture. Encourage intergenerational collaboration, recognize the value that employees of all ages bring to the organization. The difference between myself and my grandfather is I stay at a job as long as I feel I'm making an impact and nothing better is out there. My grandfather has been driving a motor coach for 56 years and refuses to retire because he believes in brand loyalty and job loyalty. So some of those different traits that you're looking for in employees can certainly be found in other generations, and they bring a lot to the table that might be overlooked because of their age. So we want to make sure we're not doing that and excluding some potential awesome candidates. Slide. So there are some reflection questions on ageism. I'm not going to ask you to answer them in the chat, but really just to consider them: how ageism affects our agency, what assumptions we make about older applicants, and this really shows some of our implicit bias. that we might have. What are older voices missing from our organization? How might age diversity improve team dynamics? And sharing an example where age diversity led to innovation. So again, this is something for us to consider when making those hiring decisions or going over our practices to make sure, we're looking at things from a fresh set of eyes and not just doing things the way that they've always been done or the way they've recently been done. Because again, a fresh set of eyes reveals a lot. And we certainly want to be equitable. We want to make sure we are getting the best people for the job. Slide. So we're going to look at some inclusive hiring practices for people with disabilities. Slide. One thing I want to point out is that disabilities come in all shapes, forms, sizes. It's not necessarily just mobility issues. It's not necessarily just something physical, but there are many mental health conditions that also qualify as people with disabilities. And anyone who's done a job application recently will see that there's boxes where in which people can self-identify. And yes, some are, most, I would say, are invisible to the naked eye. And it's important to consider that because when you look at a lot of people, when you hear the term disability, people are looking for a placard. They're looking for something they can see, something they can identify, but making sure that we're keeping our mind open. So ensure job descriptions and applications are screen reader compatible and use plain language. Somebody who might not necessarily be legally blind, but requires assistive technology to use the internet or use different resources, making sure that your website is compliant, making sure that your documents are compliant so those screen readers can see them, offering alternative interview formats, written, virtual, or asynchronous to accommodate different needs. Partner with vocational rehab programs, disability organizations, college disability offices for recruitment, provide reasonable accommodation in the hiring process. Some agencies require you to come in and fill out an application on a computer. So making sure maybe there is a larger computer monitor that's available for people that need to utilize that, or having screen reading software available. And involve individuals with disabilities in designing and reviewing your recruitment process. And I believe that's very important because whenever you are making decisions about the table, you want to make sure you have as many people sitting around that table as possible, so their feedback can be considered and can be included in what you're going to do moving forward, because we know what's best for us. And however we identify, we can help to really advocate for what could be best for someone that might have the same difficulties, challenges, or successes as us. Next slide, please. Again, legal frameworks and compliance, and I will make sure that these are still active in our current administration. That is something that completely slipped my mind in preparation. But you have the ADA, you have Section 503, confidentialities. Employers must keep disability-related information private and separate from other records. EEOC enforcement, ADA regulations. So HR teams should receive annual training on disability hiring laws and inclusive practices, especially under current and I'm sure future regimes, to know what still applies, what does not apply. But all in all, we want to make sure we are doing what is legally, morally, and ethically correct. So we are, doing what we need to do to serve people. And at the end of the day, I believe that's what this is all about, is being able to serve people and treating them with the same dignity and respect as anyone else, regardless of their background or any challenges that they might show or don't show. Slide. So some resources for, and I like the terminology inclusive ability hiring as opposed to just disability. But you got the Job Accommodation Network. You have Disability In. the National Organization on Disability, Pete Works, Center for Independent Living. I know, without disclosing too much, I know that I had to go to my employer and request some specific accommodations that they hadn't even considered. And when I was able to bring documentation and proof and things like that, they were considered. Gary, thank you so much for your participation. And, we hope to continue to work with you in the future. And you got some nuggets that you can take with you to your next assignment. Slide, please. So, advancing ability inclusion audit of recruitment.
Froze up, James, at
Board
least on my end.
form partnerships, up
Yeah, it sounds like he's breaking up quite a bit.
uh, uh,
James? No. Oh no, we lost him. Oh, I'll keep pushing the train forward. Okay, so the next step for advancing. Yes, sir.
I just said thank you.
Oh. So advancing ability inclusion, which I love that name as well, is conduct a disability inclusion audit of recruitment and onboarding practices. So how are you creating an inclusive environment for people that currently work at your organization or people you're trying to recruit to your organization? Form partnerships with national, local disability employment organizations. One of the things is important too is like have somebody from a disability employment organization come to your organization and look at your entrances, your bathrooms, your forms, your online presence. We do like 508 compliance when we're sending materials out. So those things are important. So how do you create an environment that creates inclusivity? So update your onboarding to include disability etiquette and awareness training. So if you don't currently do some training around that, that's important that you create that as a part of your onboarding process. But also, it's not just a one size fits all, check the box. We did this. It should be an ongoing process and maybe offered at least twice a year for everybody, but especially onboarding when you have people coming in. Establish internal metrics, again, within your organization that tracks your progress towards disability recruitment and retention. Do you know, obviously you don't go around asking people if they have disabilities, but if you are part of the HR team or you are a supervisor and somebody has disclosed something to you, it's something that's important to know. James, are you back? Okay, he's not back. Okay, I'll keep going. Again,
I am.
setting. Oh, you are. Okay, sorry, I didn't see you. I'll turn back over to you. James. All right, I'm gonna keep the train moving. So set public or in, we can't hear you. You're cutting out. We can't hear you. All right, I'm gonna keep moving. Set up public or internal goals to hire and retain people with disabilities across all levels of your organization. If you do not have those practices now or policies around that, it's important to ensure that you have those as embedded as a part of your onboarding process, but also in regards to your recruitment and your retention. So let's talk about retention strategies for age populations. So supporting older workers is so important. They have such a great, not they, that's me. It's not they, it's me. So supporting people like me, a part of your, older workers, you know, I'm going to use myself. So we have a lot of institutional knowledge. I've been doing this work for many, many years, a couple decades now. And it's so important that, our voices are a part of that process because we do have that institutional knowledge that has helped grow these programs or has created some of these programs even. So offering phased retirement and flexible schedules to support people who are aging within your organization is important, and recognizing and celebrating their tenure through awards and storytelling. A lot of times it's a great way to kind of showcase to younger folks within your organization the importance of the folks that are older within your organization, because they could story tell, they could talk about, yeah, I created this program, I wrote this grant many years ago, or we got funding for this, and this is kind of how it started, but also celebrating their tenure. Hey, Nikki's been around for 2 decades now, 2 decades plus, and celebrating that, and creating senior advisors or mentor roles, as James had expressed. He had a mentor who was a senior who actually became his supervisor. So you can learn so much from an older population as well, and working together with the younger population, it kind of creates that intersectionality where you're bringing both of these two generations together to kind of focus on problem solving and providing ergonomic assessments and modifications to workplace when you can. I know, again, if you're a nonprofit or sometimes government agencies, it's hard to do those things. And survey older staff about the preferred ways to stay engaged and supported. It's important that you're getting that institutional knowledge from them, and then the best ways to keep them around and support them in their work, and using that knowledge of the creation of some of these programs. And it's also important to provide regular digital literacy and tech training, offering it to everybody. You don't want to just offer it to the old folks like me. You want to make sure that you are able to offer it to everybody. So it's something that you're having ongoing training on. Are you back, James?
I am. Can everyone hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you now.
Perfect. Um, Offering not only the literacy training, but the cross training, partnering with continuing education programs. And again, we spoke about it before, but normalize lifelong learning across all levels of staff. Um, I believe that's something that is certainly important. So everyone feels included and everyone feels a part of the conversation as well as the organization. Slide, please. So intergenerational workplaces, creating opportunities for mentoring, as we spoke of before, celebrate multi-decade staff contributions during team events, encourage mixed age project teams to share perspective. One thing that we do here at HP, we have a workforce lab, and when the breakout rooms are assigned, we make sure that we are cognizant of who's going to be in those rooms. So it's not all just one demographic, but multiple demographics are. They have an opportunity to give input and to share out, foster respectful dialogue, and host roundtables on age equity in the workplace. That's always a great thing as well. Slide, please. So, offering mental wellness programs geared towards older staff needs, supporting transitions through life coaching or retirement planning, really addressing isolation risk for remote older workers that applies, providing brief support groups and flexible leave policies. One thing that we have to consider, especially when looking at things like bereavement policies and stuff of that nature, is the way the family is defined. Right. Sometimes people are closer to their uncles than they might be their brothers or sisters. So making sure that the leave policy incorporates all of those things and takes all of those things into consideration, and not being so rigid as to telling people how long they should or how long they can need accommodations for certain events, especially when dealing with grief support. Next slide. So, just a review of some retention strategies for people with disabilities, ensuring ongoing access to assisted tech and accommodations. Just like any other technology, assistive technology is constantly growing, and making sure that we are, if not on the cutting edge, we are accepting and accommodating of what's out there and making sure it's accessible. Training supervisors in inclusive communication, disability etiquette. Again, it's not just what's physical, but using motivational interviewing techniques with people who might have mental health triggers that we're unaware of, making sure that we're speaking in tones that show respect, and using language that is not stigmatizing or triggering. Creating disability inclusive workplace celebrations and events. One thing we need to be cognizant of is the bright lights, the balloons. Certain types of celebrations can be overwhelming for people with certain sensory issues. So offering alternatives to participating in events like that. Gone are the days of having an office party with loud music and everyone running around and having what is considered in a good time, because that can make someone very miserable if they're unable to participate. And creating a visible feedback loop for accessibility improvement. It could be something as a suggestion box or a suggestion tag where people can say, hey, I would be able to better perform my job if I had this, or if these things were taken in consideration, because there could be things happening that we don't consider, we have not considered, or because we haven't lived in that particular situation, we don't even know, could be a barrier for others. Next slide, please. Professional development. Again, mentorship is great. Peer support programs. Peer support is, I believe, one of the greatest innovations recently in the workforce, because what it says is, I trust you enough to be able to make decisions that are not only best for you, but can serve people in your same categories. Ensuring training materials are accessible. Again, caption videos. I love the fact that a lot of meetings now are transcribed. So if someone is having difficulty hearing or difficulty processing what's being said, they can go back and take a look at it. The use of AI, the use of these different technologies that we're learning about, really making the world an easier place for others. Recognizing unique leadership skills developed through lived experience. As Nikki had implied earlier, you can have more degrees than a thermometer. But somebody who's been there and done that can provide just as much insight, and sometimes from a greater angle and perspective than learning it from a book. So really celebrating that, celebrating participants' clients or employees' years in that particular field, in the diverse ways that they've engaged with others, and letting them know that that is valued as well as a piece of paper on the wall. Promoting disabled staff into leadership pipelines. Of course, you don't want to put out a banner, we just promoted someone who was disabled. But when that is a consideration that's given, or when that is something that is made known, not barring someone from being promoted because of a mental or physical or whatever type of disability that they have disclosed, thinking that it's going to limit their ability to do the job, because it might give them the ability to do the job at a greater level than someone else. Next slide, please. Trauma-informed supervision. I like this because supervisors should really receive training on systemic barriers and stigma. There are certain practices that have been done for a very long time in regarding supervision, where in which they can be triggering, it can be marginalizing, and it can really create an unfair experience. Using strength-based language in performance conversations. We call it the compliment sandwich, where you say something good, you say something difficult, and then you say something good in the end to make it seem not as if someone is trying to bring you down, but they're really trying to highlight the good things that you're doing, giving room for improvement, and then reinforcing it with some good things that you've been doing. Offer regular wellness check-ins tailored to individual needs. The best thing my supervisors ever said to me is if you need to talk to me, whether it's work related or something you have going on outside that might be affecting your work, feel free. You know, we don't always have to talk dollars and cents or numbers and data, but saying good morning, how are you, we sort of lost that with a lot of the remote work that we do, where you're not walking by someone's cubicle slapping them a high five, but sending a Teams message or a email just to say hello, whether they respond to it or not. It means a lot when you're working on a project or IT sends you out a new computer and the connection is horrible and you've been preparing for a meeting all day and stuff keeps happening that you can't control. So now you're on an iPad trying to do the same thing. Those types of encouragement mean a lot as opposed to just bringing up the bad stuff. Providing protected time for therapy or self-care appointments. One thing I want to say, and I'll get off the soapbox, is a lot of therapists work 9 to 5, as well as what we work 9 to 5. So saying it's okay to step aside, not just for lunch, but if you need to go to a doctor's appointment, you know, make your deadlines, but making that an okay part of our day, I believe is huge. And aligning performance goals with wellness needs for disabled or differently abled staff is the tip we threw in there as well. Next slide, please. Inclusive benefits, I think it speaks for itself. Disability friendly options, flexible work locations and hours, making employee assistance programs accessible to all. Everybody needs a doctor, everybody needs a therapist, everyone needs certain things. So making it available is beautiful. Support disability with affinity/resource groups, budget leadership access. Again, audit, see what you're doing and how you can do it better. But sometimes benefits are really what make someone want to stay or want to leave. Hearing aids are very expensive. I won't tell you how I know how, but when you're fighting with an insurance company over something that you need, it's difficult. But there are a lot of programs that employers can connect with and do to really help with some of those hidden costs that we don't often think of. So including that into your benefits conversation is a wonderful thing. Next slide, please. So empowerment through voice. Ensure disabled staff are represented on advisory and policy boards. Invite participation. Use anonymous feedback to capture inclusion climate data. Sometimes people don't want their name associated with certain things, but if there is an anonymous form that they can utilize, you might see a greater chance of feedback, and share changes that result in disability and inclusive input. Next slide, please. So just again, a review of building a sustainable workforce pipeline with the age population, creating part-time mentorship and phase retirement roles to retain and re-engage experienced professionals, partnering with the right organizations, offering flexible tech and accessible training, promoting intergenerational learning, and then really identifying roles ideal for experienced older workers, promoting, you know, upskilling opportunities. Then with people with different abilities, developing inclusive career pathways, collaborating with vocational rehab programs, normalize accommodations and onboarding, tracking representation, and establishing at least one pipeline partnership with a disability focused employment practice. And, you know, those are some great suggestions, some tips to move forward. Next slide. Creating supportive and equitable organizational structure. Again, I'm not going to beat a dead horse, but really implement trauma-informed supervision, celebrating diversity, offering wellness programs and benefits, including aged and disabled staff and committees and organizational planning, and really launching a culture audit and creating affinity spaces that reflect these voices, these populations' voices. So having that space, which is unbiased, which is, not necessarily monitored by upper level leadership, so people are worried about what they're saying, but allowing employees to voice what's important to them and making sure that those concerns or even successes are elevated as high as they need to. Next slide. My favorite slide of the entire presentation. Are there any questions? Thank you all again for bearing with me. I can't apologize enough, but thank you for bearing with the both of us during this presentation. But if there's any questions that you have, we certainly want to open the floor to you.
Thank you, James. I appreciate you bobbing and a weaving and a weaving and a bobbing to figure it out. So I think we've all been there. So technology. So thank you. Any questions that you all have for us? Go ahead, Darren, please.
A lot of resiliency, James.
Thank you.
And I just wanted to add, I never heard more degrees than a thermometer. I'll have to remember that one.
That was a good one. Anybody have any questions or any things that we can do to support you in your organization?
I think one of the major takeaways along with this quote, and we got a real-time example, is being flexible with different populations in your recruiting and your retention, knowing that sometimes difficulties pop up that were not expected, not just in meetings, but in people's lives. So whether you're dealing with the disabled population and an age population, I'm 35 and I can tell you I probably go to the doctors more than my grandmother. So some of the ageism things might apply to me more than it would apply to her or my grandfather. So creating an inclusive environment for all and not stigmatizing anyone based off of age or ability or anything like that would certainly make our world and certainly our workforce a better place.
I agree, James. Any curveballs y'all want to throw at us?
Monique, that smile on your profile picture is making me think that you do have some curveballs, but you're going to save them because you're being nice. So
nice try.
Monique already has our number.
No, it was just really insightful to know that we are on track and doing all the right things. It's just confirmation, affirmation for us. I'll connect with my counterpart and see what else we can do just to continue to improve and do better.
Well, thank you all for being the outliers in society and doing what needs to be done. And please keep up the great work on behalf of all those that have benefited from you all doing the right thing. So it's always good to have that confirmation and, an attaboy, a pat on the back, a COVID-friendly fist bump to everyone on your team.